You are listening to the Gritty Podcast, where we talk about all things gritty. All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Call. I'm here with Brad Hunt, and we are on a late season mule deer hunt. It's a rifle hunt. We're inside this, what we're testing is a Peaks prototype teepee. We're about 5 days in on a mule deer hunt. It's a migration hunt. We love to do these high mountain mule deer hunts, which puts us way at the top of some nasty, craggy mountain tops. And the mule deer get pushed out by the snow, and they get ruddy and sniffy because it's early rut. So it's a great hunt. We're backpacked in a long way. We never run into anybody on these really remote hunts because nobody's crazy enough to come back here for 150 inch to 180 inch mule deer. I mean, there's a chance that there's bigger deer. We're all pretty much, if we see something 150 or better, we're all ready to sort of, pull the trigger.
In the very head, he's got to be, I think, 160. It's nasty country in there.
True. We have ranges depending on whether we are 5 miles back or 9 miles back.
Our numbers get smaller as we head down canyon,
Yeah. But it's myself and Brad Hunt, and we've got Ryan Lampers and Kym.
Yep, Kym Lloyd. And the four of us all have deer tags. I don't know if the microphone is picking up the sound of the snow on the teepee. It's been nice and cozy. I think this is day 5. We've been camped right here. Brad and I kicked out dug out a nice little flat. Good thing it was not real rocky. Yeah, because it's rocky, but it's sandy, so you can dig up the rock. Yeah, it's like a what do they call it? Almost like a sandstone type stuff. But we've got like probably 22 to 24 inches of the side hill cut down. Yeah, to level out a spot. So, we're going to talk a little bit about this hunt, and we're going to continue to do a series of podcasts. I'll get Ryan Lampers on here. We'll sit down and do a little show as well. But we got time to kill, so we figured we'd sit down and talk about the hunt a little bit each day as the hunt progresses. We have, I think, 7 days of food left. The season's about that much longer as well. With a lot of time still. We have not seen but 2 deer. No.
In 5 days, I think. 6 days.
Which is, again, on a migration hunt, which is actually can be typical because it could be we could wake up in the morning and we have 100 head of deer right here.
Yeah, I mean, really, the way, I've done a lot of late season mule deer hunts over the years that are migration deer, some archery, some rifle. And it's strange how these deer move down the mountain in batches, in herds, basically 20, 30 deer.
These little waves of deer that come through.
And the fact that we just picked up 2 deer tonight down here in this little meadow, in this little canyon, is a good sign because they have not been here for the last 5 days. This is kind of the head, about as high as we can get when weather comes in, and still be able to see and hunt.
Yeah.
Because it's just too weathered in, too cold, too nasty any higher. So we're right at the point where they should pop out and give us and stage right about here for a while, or pass by us in the next few days, depending on how nasty the weather gets.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Like, the thing is, too, is you get much higher, and you kind of limit yourself to
I mean, you can see a lot of country, but you kind of limit yourself to one canyon, one draw.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if you're way up high, you're most likely going to have to come all the way back down and cross to get over to where the deer are.
Right.
You might have them on your side, but it's also hard to glass deer that are on the same side as you.
Basically what you're saying is if you go too high on the mountain, you better be right on the deer.
Yeah.
Because if you're not, the terrain, you're so high on one peak, you've sort of put all your eggs in that basket.
Yeah, exactly.
If there's no deer on that particular giant peak you climbed up onto, there's no, you just wasted a lot of time. You got to come down.
Yep.
Where we're at, we're in a funnel where they kind of all dump. They all kind of have to go through this one slot to get out of the high country.
Yep.
And it might take a few days, but the way the weather is, two things are going on. You got the rut and you got the weather.
Yep.
And the bucks will just go wherever the does are at.
Exactly.
But those does, I mean, we're getting temperatures. It's tons of snow. We're hitting the teens here in the next few days in temperatures.
Like highs in the teens.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be cold.
It's going to be real cold. And every day, the rut gets better and better.
Yeah.
So we're predicting that within the next 2 days to start seeing this basin fill up with does and bucks to follow.
Yep.
That's the prediction.
Yeah. And it is. It's only a matter of time. It's just hopefully that time is before the end of the season.
Yeah, you're always in a race against the end of the season.
Yep.
Sometimes you get on these migration hunts and it's real discouraging because you can be in a spot and it seems like there's not a deer for thousands of miles. It's like there's just no deer. And then all of a sudden one day they just start pouring in.
Yep.
So the thing about it is it really takes some patience. And just because you're there 7-day period doesn't mean like 4 days later you come back to that same spot and it's just full of deer.
Yep.
Another thing that happens is they come in, you got 30 deer in a herd, kind of in a basin, in a pocket that you're sitting on.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you wake up one morning and they are gone.
Yeah.
Just gone. They're nowhere to be seen. You could hunt that spot for 3 or 4 more days, another week, and you may not see another batch come in before the season ends. And so these deer move in layers, in groups. And so you could either drop lower and follow the deer on their migration, or you hope that more deer come into your spot on the migration path.
Yep.
But just because you had some move in doesn't mean they don't just move right out past you. And then you got to adjust. You either got to move with the deer or you got to catch the new group that comes through. Or you got to climb higher up to wherever they're at.
Yep.
Some of the guys that have been hunting these kind of migration routes for years, they got some inside knowledge and they know, like, okay, the deer come here. And if they're not there, then they're on this plateau. And if they're not there, then they're over here.
Yep.
And they basically kind of have these deer kind of patterned on where they're going to go.
Yeah, it's just, I think, over years of knowledge, of knowing kind of where the deer come through. And sometimes you don't hit it just right. Like, you might be in the wrong spot. It might look like incredible deer country. But these migration routes, like, I mean, it's you hope you're in the right spot.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and weather too, because you can get nasty storms in September, October, going into November. And the rut's hard in November for mule deer. But sometimes you can have a really mild September and October.
Yeah.
So the deer are so high in November.
Super high.
That you're nowhere near where you can hunt them.
Yep.
So you don't, you can also get a storm in September, and then they're all low in October. So much of it is, of their migration is weather dependent.
Right.
I've also been on hunts where we have seen them drop because of a storm early October. and they're all in the low country. And then it gets up to 70 degrees for 2 weeks, and they all go right back up
to the top. Yeah.
Just because they came down doesn't mean they're going to stay down.
It's almost like they kind of will follow that snow line to a certain extent, you know, and it's like if the snow line continues to rise again, the deer move back up mountain.
If you're in an area where there's certain vegetation that can kind of tell you, okay, this is a winter ground.
Yep.
You know, if it's a lot of yellow grass, a lot of that kind of stuff, it's lower elevation, you're like, oh, this is where they winter. And you can tell by all the sheds you find.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, sheds galore in some of the low country.
Yep.
And you're like, okay, well, this is where they winter. We're kind of in between their winter grounds and their summer grounds.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're trying to get to them. If we were to hunt their winter ground, unless we had nasty weather for like weeks on weeks,
yeah,
our season would probably end before we could ever get one. That's why you want to you got to put yourself in the right spot in the migration for the dates you have.
Exactly. And, you know, just from different areas that I've hunted, I've noticed that it might not just be deep snow. If you have deep snow, I've seen deer in 2 feet of snow and they don't care.
Yeah, I was telling you that today. The snow doesn't really matter.
Right.
Like, if there's a whole bunch of snow up there, I've seen them rut and just hang out up there.
But the combination I've always seen that really pushes the deer down is deep snow and cold temperatures. And I'm talking like in the teens or below, 10, 0.
Yep.
That really seems to push the deer down.
I think the wind as well.
Yeah.
When you get a lot of wind and you get the low temps, those fawns.
Yeah.
I think the does are pretty tough. The bucks are tough as hell. But what happens is a few of those fawns, they just can't survive.
Yeah.
Once you hit that. They were just born in the spring. So they've just had a summer to sort of put on some size and weight.
Yep.
And those moms are like, yeah, I got to get my baby down here to some softer country where there's lots of good feed, there's a long winter ahead. But it's as if they know that they don't want to pop down into their winter ground until they absolutely have to.
Yep.
It's like they know they don't want to eat their winter ground forage. They want to save it as long as possible, or it's a combination of, something of that nature, or they know they're safer up high until the weather.
A pressure thing or whatever.
Cats, wolves, and things like that they just don't. They're not as easily preyed upon up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting hunt. Every time I try to hunt late season muleys on migration routes in the mountains, I learn a little more every time about the deer. And I used to freak out when I didn't see anything for 5 or 6 days. Right. And sometimes 10 days. And the thing is we've come on some of our best hunting has been like early in the season, and it got worse later, even though the rut got hotter, because the weather. Yeah. The weather was great early, pushed all the deer down. They rutted seemingly earlier, and then all of a sudden it just died, and for the next 7 days it got bad. So I can't, sometimes you might think, well, why don't you just come the closest to the rut? Well, because some of the best hunting I've seen has been 20 days before the rut kicked in.
It is.
I've seen some seriously giant rutting bucks.
I think it is so weather dependent. You cannot. That's what you're counting on. You're banking on is the weather.
But the weather can happen in September.
And that's
October.
The thing is,
it's not just.
It's always so much better when you have early weather, snows and stuff like that in late September, early October.
Yeah.
And then it kind of, even if it warms back up a little bit, it still moved those deer down just a little bit, and they might have went back up, but not all the way. And then you're waiting for that weather to come back in again to continually push them down.
Yeah.
Which is, we couldn't ask for better weather right now.
But I've been in some of these hunts where the weather just it dumped 2 feet of snow, and it was 5 degrees.
Yeah.
And -10. When that happened, all the deer dropped into the low country. They all piled into one little basin. I mean, that's magical when that happens.
Yes. Well, fingers crossed. We're hoping that happens.
You always hope. And the forecast looks like it could.
Yeah.
It could deliver.
Yes.
It could.
Like we're getting the precipitation right now, the snow, mixed rain, and obviously high, it's just snow.
Everything's covered in white.
It's covered in white. And it's just, hopefully it continues to build up and pile up. But the forecast, I think after tomorrow, like tomorrow's highs in the 20s, but after that it's like 15, 18, and that's the high.
Yep.
So it's...
So, we'll do a couple more of these podcasts. Let's talk a little bit about a couple pieces of gear that we brought on this trip that we haven't used in the past for all you gear junkies out there.
Yep.
I brought that Petzl.
Yeah,
what is it? Petzl Ride. It's like an 8-ounce pickaxe.
Yep.
And I think it's 8 ounces. Might be 6. I don't remember, but it feels feather light.
It's the one, it does not have a spike on the end, so it's the lighter version.
The spike one is like 5 ounces more. I have that one too. But honestly, this was plenty.
They work great
for what we're doing. And
like
we knew that this hunt and some of these mountain hunts, there's literally no flat spots. Like you get up here in these craggy mountains, and it's like
if you do find one, it might be big enough for
it's a deer bed,
a teepee. If you're very, very lucky, there's no way that it's big enough for 2.
Yeah.
And with us, Kyle and Ryan have one, we have one. It was like, we gotta dig out some stuff to figure out where to...
We've had 3 camp spots, and every single one of them has been carved out of a slope. And we use that pickaxe. And I've been on this hunt in the past, and you're camped on a slope. You try to dig it out with rocks or sticks, and you get it fairly decent. But dude, with that pickaxe, we were able to
we moved some dirt.
we were just able to excavate this into a flat platform.
No joke when I say we are down 22, 24 inches or more, from the side hill. So the hill's like this, and we've dug down to where we're 24 inches below, the side hill, and then we've dug down flat here. And
we got just a big enough space to set this teepee up more or less flat.
Yeah.
Got the stove going. Super impressed with that pickaxe. I mean, it was well worth it, Ryan. Everybody's used it, and he's like, dude, that thing's awesome.
We all were like, yeah, it is so worth the 6 or 8 ounces. If
I were to come, and even with a deer bed, kicking out a deer bed, you bring that thing, you can throw up a one-man, for example,
Silex or
with a stove, and you'd be a king out here.
Yeah.
But we've got this new Peaks prototype teepee that we've been running and testing. It's actually been going a few years now. And we've never really shown it much as we have gone through different iterations with it. But I'm super impressed with it. I really like the dome doors.
Yep, same here.
And there's 2.
Yep.
I like it because the doors...
as you open the door, you can hold it with your other hand, and the door is not falling in, or the moisture is not really falling in on your bed. You can keep it away from your gear and your bedding and all that stuff.
Yep.
And it also, from the top, you can zip it with the double zipper. You can
unzip
zip the top, and
it's a window,
and you can glass from it.
That is cool.
It's nice. It's very nice.
I used it during bear season. One of the prototypes, one of the early ones, and it was cool. Got to experience. There's a lot of things I didn't like, and so Peaks went back to the drawing board and made all those changes. All the things that Ryan and I kind of complained about. One of the coolest features that it has is you can take your trekking poles in the peak here, and it creates a cross member
which really stiffens up the top of the teepee and makes it super rigid. But also, we got soaking wet.
Yeah. Like day one.
It just deluged. We got rained on, and we didn't have our gear out.
We're in the middle of hiking up, so it's like,
and
you can put the rain gear on, but you're going to get just as wet inside as you are outside.
We kind of were like, we got teepees with stoves, so we'll just dry out.
Yep.
So we just went ahead and we got soaked. We threw up the teepees, got the stoves going, hot, got the cross members with the trekkers up above, and there's a mesh net up there as well in the peak. And we were able to hang.
We pretty much had
gear,
all our coats,
clothing,
our clothes, everything, gloves.
Just the fact that you can hang so much gear off those trekking poles is I know I say this sometimes, a game changer. But it is a game changer. It completely changes.
Well, and to add to that, one thing that really, really helped, because our boots were, soaked, like inside and outside. I literally could squish my insoles, the inside of my boot, and all your heat in your teepee is goes
to the peak,
and
then pushes down as
it pushes down as it fills up with the heat. Well, putting your gear up there, that helps. It's kind of like throwing it in a dryer, basically.
Yep.
Well, with our boots, the Graxaw boot dryers, like within an hour and a half, 2 hours, our boots were dry, like dry as a bone.
And we just stacked them on their side in the mesh net up there. Both pairs, 4 boots up there. Put the fans in them. Boom, they were dry so
Run
fast.
The fire,
but even all your clothing and jackets and rain gear, everything was just hanging on the poles.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of attachments. I don't know. I'm really impressed. The height, it's a little bigger than what we're normally using, teepee wise. But every piece of equipment though has its pros and cons.
Yeah.
And but I'm impressed. Like I really, when I first tried out one of these prototypes 3 years ago, I was like, no way.
Got some work to do.
This is not it. 3 years later, it's like, man, you've made the changes we asked for.
Yeah.
You've made we had all these ideas, and they took them.
Yep. And
have added to them. They surprised us with some of their ideas, and I'm pretty stoked. I'm like a floorless teepee. It's got lots of guy outs because we deal with a lot of wind.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I was at home in Oregon. It's Utah. It's funny. I was at home, and I have a buddy in town there who's hunted a long time, but never hunted using a teepee floorless shelter.
Been a guide and all sorts of stuff.
Been a guide, and he's like, dude, but I don't get it. It's got no floor. And I'm like, it's got a stove, a wood stove burning. Yes. I got a Tyvek tarp I lay on. You know
how miserable this would be without a stove?
We were just kicking it in a heated castle.
Yeah.
So the stove game changes everything.
And not only, it's obviously very nice to dry out clothes. You come back in at night and you're wet from hiking or whatever, you can dry out your clothes. But days like the last 3 or 4 or 5 days where we're just socked into the teepee because it's socked outside, like you can't see. There's no point in sitting out there glassing. And we're sitting in here and we're not getting the teepee hot. Like we're not burning really hot wood. We get some big logs in there that just kind of simmer, but it takes off the edge and it's perfect.
Yeah, instead of it being, it's like 45 or 55 degrees in here.
Yep.
Which is great because outside it's 20.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and the wind, you're blocked from the wind in the teepee.
Yeah.
And
no, it's it changes everything when you're out here on these really cold, nasty, wet late season hunts.
Yeah.
Being able to
pitch something and dry your stuff and have a warm shelter. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Another thing that we'll talk about on another podcast is the electronics game we got going on. The battery chargers, the solar panels.
Like, no joke, people. We have been watching probably 6 to 8 hours of TV on our phones. Because it's like you can't see. And
yeah, you're socked in. You're waiting.
Yeah.
I have watched everything on my phone.
Same here.
Out. I thought it would last me, but it's just been such a dead hunt.
Yeah.
As we wait.
Yep.
But we'll get into that a little bit more. It's pitch dark in here. I don't even know if the camera's picking us up anymore.
Yeah, I can still kind of see us, but we probably don't look too pretty.
So we're going to wrap up this episode of the Gritty Podcast. Stay tuned for the next one. We're going to try to get a series recorded while we're on the hunt. Mm-hmm. Our prediction is we're going to start seeing some deer and a giant buck will come out in the next few days.
Yeah, I think...
That's our prediction.
I think tomorrow is not supposed to be as stormy. I think it's going to be a moving day. We'll probably see some does. And then I think in 2 to 4 days, we're going to start seeing some good buck moving activity.
That's the theory. And
hopefully.
Well, you guys will be right here experiencing it with us episode by episode on the podcast because if it's a lot of movie watching, we're just going to keep talking about equipment and gear and tactics.
If we don't come out of the hunt with a lot of podcasts, we got into some action.
Yeah, totally. So, all right, folks, thanks for tuning in. And, check out all our partners in the description field of our YouTube videos. If you need any gear, check out Stealthy Nutrition, check out Peaks Equipment, get a rifle cover from Ryan Lampers and Hillary or a glassing pad. All that stuff helps us keep doing what we do. We got a partnership with Mountain Ops, and if you get some Yeti or some Ignite or Blaze shots, get the merino wool.
And I'm going to throw in a plug. I'm going to throw in a plug for Ryan's glassing pad because it's no joke. Like on these hunts like this where it's wet and cold, keeping your behind off of the cold ground is a game changer.
We use it endlessly to sit on, to kneel on, to just the right size. It's very versatile. So check all that out, folks, and wish us luck. Thanks for tuning in. Stay gritty.